welcome back to another episode of How Yoga Changed My Life, a podcast. In case you can't tell, or you've never heard my voice, or you don't remember who I am, this is Mia. A long time no talk. Earlier in 2025, around April, Adrian and I discussed me taking a break from the podcast just due to life circumstances and a lot going on personally, professionally, and thankfully she very graciously accepted my pause and has manned the ship in the meantime. So I wanted to give y'all a little update of what has been going on in my life and how yoga has been an assistance in this very, very turbulent time, truthfully. I have shared on the podcast, but the biggest thing I think that I can think about when I think about 2025 is Graves' disease. I shared that I received that diagnosis, I want to say in December of 2024. And 2025 went by in a blur, I think, because I was just so exhausted. I was also I say diagnosed with fatigue. I'm sure many people who deal with different autoimmune diseases or illness have fatigue, but it was very interesting to see it as like a formal diagnosis on my blood work panels and on my sheets from the doctors and things of that nature. So I was diagnosed with fatigue. I was so tired. And so it made for a very, very quick and long year at the same time. Diagnosed at the end of 2024, working on a proper medicine regimen early of 2025. And actually during the summer, I started to feel really normal and healthy again. Normal in that my heart rate went down. It did not feel like I needed the medicine in order to manage my heart rate because I had a medication specifically for heart rate and blood pressure. And I felt by all necessary terms, I felt normal. And I had a very normal summer. I traveled a lot. I celebrated my bachelorette. I traveled with students. I traveled with Jair. I went to a wedding and all seemed normal, kosher, manageable. And I thought I was really on this up and up. The new school year started in August and I immediately declined. I talked with Adrian on the phone about it, but I was back in the school building for all of 2 work days and I was moving around my classroom and I was out of breath. Nothing had changed except for my environment. And so unfortunately my heart rate spiked. I was once again resting in the hundreds. I was out of breath just walking around my classroom and I was immediately very scared and upset because I love teaching. I love working with kids and working with youth. And I got very, very scared that perhaps somehow my teaching environment, my work environment was contributing to my health problems, which is not outrageous to say or like totally out of any realm of possibility, but it also feels like those two things should not be related. And so I did start looking for other jobs. I was ready to step back from teaching because it did not seem sustainable with my health, which was a very, very sad realization. And I went back to the doctor and I immediately called my doctor. And so at the beginning of this school year, I was once again very tired, once again exhausted. I was falling asleep with 20 kids sitting in front of me. I'm sitting in a chair and nodding off and having to wake myself back up. Meanwhile, I'm not supposed to be drinking caffeine of any shape, form, or fashion, which was really, really difficult. And so during the middle of my days, I was doing yoga nidra. I would do nidra during lunch. I would do nidra during my off period as just a way to get by, right? I don't think nidra should be this hack, but it does feel like one at times. And it was probably one of the only tools that helped me feel rested. A lot of times I would, at the end of the day, go to sleep by listening to nidra because my heart rate, again, is so elevated. It would be very hard to calm down and settle in just to go to sleep, even if it was 10 or 11 at night. So Nidra was probably my most consistent practice, getting back into the swing of things. And I think it was not just teaching, but I was dealing with a very stressful administration this first semester. I had a principal that was quite unsupportive and very taxing on myself and many other adults in the building, and everyone felt it, which was less than ideal. And so then around October, I managed to get back in with my endocrinologist. We got on a more aggressive medication regimen, seeing that my medication and my medication was not managing my Graves. If you were to look at my blood work, all of my numbers were off the charts. They were not chartable. They did not fall in any of the ranges that they could quantify with a number, which was pretty scary and intense to see. And so we doubled my medication. I was about a month out from my wedding. And so she was unwilling to go forward with the iodized radiation at that time because we wanted to monitor it pretty closely. So I doubled my medication up through my honeymoon. The doubling of the medication did make me feel better. I still was not like totally great, but I was feeling a little more under control. My heart rate was manageable. I then got married, which was a big event. I'm sure that was like not the easiest thing on stress levels either, right? Our wedding was completely done by myself and Jair. The invites, the decorations, the setup, managing the coordinators. And so that was no small feat, but it was a beautiful day. Absolutely nothing went wrong, in any major way. I think we technically started the ceremony early, a friend told me. And so I think maybe that's the one thing that was off schedule by starting early, but it was a beautiful, beautiful day. We had so much fun with our friends and family. We ate good food. We danced. Literally, the dance floor never stopped. It was amazing. I think that's like my dream wedding, when everyone is on the dance floor at some point. The dance floor is continuous. It was never empty, which I love to see. Maybe there was 5 people, maybe there was 50 people, but it was just this constant stream of dancing. Jair's cousin was our DJ, and so he really kept it lively, and it was a perfect evening. We got our photos back not too long ago, and I really enjoyed looking at those. We went to Peru for our honeymoon, and that was a really beautiful experience. It was my first time in Peru, and we saw multiple cities. We ate so much good food, and actually we ended at the beaches of Peru, and we were outside of whale season, which I didn't even know Peru had a whale season, but I saw a humpback whale like jump out of the ocean and land back in. I was screaming. I was so excited. I was like the only one on the beach. I'm like jumping, screaming, trying to get Jair's attention. He comes out, and we do see the whale like continuing to swim out further away. And when I got back to the beach, I immediately texted Adrienne because I know she loves this kind of symbolism situation. And I looked it up. Whales are a symbol of longevity. So that was a nice symbol and sign on our honeymoon, I like to think. Coming back from the honeymoon, I then started to decrease my medication in preparation for the next treatment plan for my Graves' disease, which was iodized radiation. I also went back to school. I had missed, I think, 8 days total for my wedding and honeymoon. And when I got back to school, I was pulled into the principal's office and told that I was not welcome on the premises and needed to collect my belongings and leave. I was shocked and confused, and my principal let me know that there should be some emails from HR saying that, again, I'm not allowed on the property, that I need to talk to HR, that I did not follow the proper procedures in order to be absent for 8 days, and that I needed to take extended medical leave. I left campus crying because I was on no medications to help regulate my system in any way, right? My blood pressure, my heart rate. my thyroid medications help with my hormones and my thyroid. So I felt very unregulated. It felt like almost a year prior to a diagnosis, prior to a medication where everything was out of my control. It was cleared up in 30 minutes. I called HR and they said, who? Said what? No, you're good. And I was back in 30 minutes. So that was like relieving, but still a very stressful experience and a less than welcoming environment to return to, especially amidst dealing with these health issues. And so that was a quite stressful end of the year, right? That was December. And my really only saving grace was that my principal was leaving. This person who created a really unwelcomed environment was not going to be there in January. So I came back to this really unwelcomed environment. I had a lot of people encouraging me to file a complaint with HR, to take up like a bigger issue with kind of that reception that I received, especially because it was kind of founded on nothing. HR had no concerns with me. I was not actually unwelcome on campus. It was a manufactured experience. The only reason, sorry, let me restate all that again. I had a lot of people encouraging me to go to HR and file a complaint, take up a bigger issue due to the treatment that I got when I returned, especially because it was a manufactured concern. HR had no concerns with me. My actual employers, my district had no concerns with me. And there was previous treatment of just that was not great on my campus towards me, towards other teachers. And so people really wanted me to, take something that could be turned into something and report it to HR in hopes that I don't know. I don't really know what the intent would be there. I guess to maybe get her in trouble, to get my principal in trouble, something of that nature, right? Maybe get someone looking at her actions on our campus. But my only consolation was that my principal had already announced her departure. She was going to retire early. She did not return in January. And so I told myself I can make it a month. I can be okay for a month despite I don't want to say horrible work environment, but a less than ideal work environment that I was not looking forward to being in. And that was causing me a lot of stress, right? That caused my health to be unmanageable. And so I then was, that was, I think, a Tuesday. Friday, I was out again in order to do the iodized radiation. And thankfully, that has been seemingly a very successful treatment. I did that early December, and it is now mid-January. I'm about to do my blood work and go back for follow-ups to really look at what it did do internally. But I feel a lot better. I am not tired. I am not exhausted. I'm not reaching for caffeine at lunchtime. Oh, tissue. Oof. Which is a huge improvement for me. Again, I was falling asleep in the classroom. I was having to use Nidra as a crutch. I was just exhausted, and there's really no way to describe it, but the constant fatigue was unending. And so I feel a lot better now. I haven't put on any of the biometric rings, watches kind of situation to look at my resting heart rate, but I can physically tell the difference. And if I were to count my heart rate right now, it is a lot slower than I previously experienced. So that has been really, really nice. So that's a little bit of what's been happening health, right? Graves disease wise, got married, quick blip on the map, and just school, my teaching environment. I think outside of that, I do want to name my students are the best group I've ever had. They are so chill, so calm. They listen to directions. I'm having a lot of fun with them. I was a little nervous when the school year started because my campus moved to a boxed curriculum, but the first unit sucked. Unit 2 and 3 have been great. I am finishing Frankenstein right now with my students. We read a graphic novel version, and I have been enjoying it immensely. So I'm enjoying that. I am currently coaching girls soccer. I'm doing that with the high school. I'm about to start track season at the middle school. So per always, I'm very busy. That's like my resting state, which is probably what made Graves so hard, is that it made, my constant doing, my constant moving a little more difficult for me. Amongst all of that, the studio has just hit 1 year of being open, which was very fun and exciting. I think in the time that I have been away, the studio did change ownership, or not the studio, sorry. The studio's building changed ownership. So our landlord has changed, and that kind of came with some challenges. But my consolation is that is the one thing that is out of my control. And so if that is the one thing that I cannot manage, that I cannot control, then that's a pretty good, decent list, right? One thing is out of my control and the rest is going smoothly, swimmingly. I have no complaints. I'm really excited. We brought on 2 new teachers, Bella and Caroline, who maybe I will invite to be on the podcast. But since being open, we've really only had to add 2 teachers. We've had, I think, 2 teachers leave, one being a part of the military, another taking up more work opportunities, and actually a third who just kind of stepped away from teaching for a period. So, we had 3 step down. We've added 3 in the course of the year, which is not too much turnover. I've been at places with a lot of turnover, and I'm really excited about these new teachers who are joining us. Caroline actually grew up in the same hometown as Jair. I haven't told that to Adrian. I feel like that's going to be a cool fact that she's going to like. They have the same area code on their phone number, and that's how I figured it out. They both were rowers. They went to like opposing high schools. I think they're just like 3 or 4 years apart. And so they've had a lot to talk about. And she recently moved to San Antonio. So we have some things that we'd love to like show her and let her get acquainted with in the city. But it has been a busy nearly year, right? It hasn't been a whole year since I've been on the podcast, but it does feel like it, right? It has felt like a long time. And so it's nice to just even sit down and share all of those things, get them off my chest. Truthfully, Nidra has been the most consistent part of my practice, because it was accessible physically. There were yoga classes that I would feel good in, and then it would get overwhelming and I would throw up, right? I think just like the adrenaline, for whatever reason, just didn't settle with my body. Restorative and yin classes were physically accessible, but it was very hard to be like prone and feel my heart rate pounding against the ground and pounding in my own body. It was just like, it just sucked. Like, okay, cool. I'm supposed to be like still and calm and reflective and introspective. And it's just like boom, 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 boom. I was like, okay, I get it. So even those slower practices were tough at times. In the past month or so, I've started doing some guided meditations with a teacher at my studio. That has been really, really nice. It is very easy for me to want to disconnect with my body right now, because physically what's happening in my body sucks for me right now. I do not like how physically incapable I am. I really struggle that I can't do most of my movement practices, right? I cannot keep up in most yoga classes. I've completely stopped going to the CrossFit gym. I've been able to do a little bit of Pilates, which has been like a new addition in my life, and I could talk a little bit more about, but movement has been, reduced to almost nothing, which is very, very hard for me. These are spaces and communities where I have found and made friends. It's where I have built and maintained community for myself, and I'm feeling myself being sidelined from that. And then additionally, right, I think I've shared this on social media from when and I might have even shared it on the podcast, but when I started to feel sick to when I got a formal diagnosis, I lost nearly 50 pounds. And so for a lot of people externally, it's like, wow, good for you. Look at you. You've lost so much weight. And and it's very aesthetically pleasing, I guess, to lose that weight, but I've never been in worse physical condition. I have never been less physically capable. And so, you know, I do let people know, yeah, I'm sick. Yeah, I have an autoimmune disease. Yeah, I've been diagnosed and I'm trying to medicate in order to, feel good again. And because then I've had people say, well, I mean, you feel better, don't you, now that you've lost the weight? And it's like, actually, no, I actually feel like shit. I actually feel like crap. I'm actually constantly fatigued. And I just share that because I think it is a good reminder that weight is not always an indicator of health, and weight more often than not is probably not an indicator of health. And so looking at people from the outside, you really do not know what's going on at any weight, at any size, at any shape. And so, you're welcome to offer that compliment, but it is not always going to land maybe how you think it might. And again, as I have shared, right, I've dealt with very disordered eating. I have dealt with a lot of body image issues. And so I am sitting here very torn in my mind, right, where I am quote unquote skinny, right? I do feel skinnier than I did a year ago. I know that I lost weight. I know that I fixate a lot on body and size. And yet I feel terrible. And so this has been something that I've known, but it was a very good lesson that like weight does not mean that I'm going to feel good. Weight does not mean that I'm going to feel healthy. Less weight, right? Less weight does not mean that I'm going to feel healthy. Less weight does not mean I'm going to feel capable. It does not mean that I'm going to feel like complete, right? Because I feel like that's something like, oh, well, when I get to this weight, I'll feel like myself. Or when I get to this weight, I'm going to feel better. When I get to this weight, then I can start living, right? That has been the complete and opposite and inverse for me, right? I have felt like crap. And despite throwing away all my clothes and having to buy new ones, right? Despite being much skinnier than I was a year ago. And so, yeah, that is, I guess, how I'm ending this little update. I don't know. I got a little distracted for myself, but I know what it was. I'm not moving. I have no movement practice, right? It's been a lot of nidra. It's been attempting a lot of yin and restorative. My favorite pose this past year has been malasana. I've really enjoyed that yogi squat. Something about it feels very grounded. I think it's the physically being low to the ground. There's a lot of compression and contraction happening in the body for me, and that's very comforting. So that's been my favorite I've noticed for this past year. A lot of things have changed physically in my practice, I think, from a lack of practice, right? Again, interesting, like to think that I was 50 pounds more, right? Because we really do think weight's going to correlate with what we can do physically. And I could do Bird of Paradise. I could do crow. I could do inversions. I could at least kick up into a handstand on a wall. Right now I cannot. I'm literally terrified that my elbows will collapse on me if I try to invert. I do not have any physical strength. I can still do Bird of Paradise. I tried that the other day. But also who cares, right? Who cares about these things? But lunges are hard. Warrior 2 is very hard for me right now. Balance is just not there. I've lost a lot of mobility in my hamstrings. Forward folds are tougher. Inversions are tough because it elevates my heart rate. I can only do so many down dogs before, a teacher's calling down dog, and I just do heroes because I can't keep putting my head below my heart. So my physical practice has changed a lot. I am being patient with that because what else can I do? I can take my meds, I can do what my doctor tells me, and I can just wait. It was a lot harder before. I think I'm very privileged to now be sitting in a place where I feel better, right? A year later, a year can feel long, but I know many people who have, told me they've struggled with this for 3-4 years. And so I'm grateful that it feels like a year in, I might be looking at a solution with what I did with the radiation. I should know in another month's time if that is the case. And I look forward to continue moving my body and to continue growing with yoga. And it has once again been with me as my life changes drastically, right? And I guess that's what happens when you stick with something for going on 10 years now. I guess I first started doing yoga 2016. And so 10 years and many changes later, I know that it's going to continue to be there for me as my life fluctuates. And I'm very grateful for that. So I look forward to being on the podcast, interviewing amazing yogis and sharing their stories with all of you. This podcast is amazing that way, that we can reach so many people, share so many people's stories, and continue to show the impact that yoga can have on your life. You can walk away from yoga. Yoga will never walk away from you. So don't forget that. And I hope to talk to all of you soon. Bye, yogis.